Hello, this is Mr. Summary. Today I am going to explain a suspense and crime film titled 4x4. Spoilers ahead, attention! Be careful. The movie begins with a man named Ciro walking through a neighborhood of Buenos Aires. Ciro is a thug, and when he spots a car that interests him, he enters it. He gets into the car and steals the stereo system from the overhead compartment. Ciro finds a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses and puts them in his pocket. He is still not satisfied with having broken into the car and squeezes his buttocks hard to pass gas. He finally feels that his job is done and proceeds to leave, but behold the problem. The door does not open. He tries the other 3 doors, but none of them open and he has no other choice. He is forced to move to the back seat, where he tries to get the trunk of the car to open. Upon failing to do so, he finally begins to panic and tries desperately to break the car window, but without success. However, the experienced thug refuses to give up and disassembles the interior part of the car door. Next, he sticks his hand inside the door and tries to open it, but he only manages to hurt himself a lot and begins to bleed. The car door does not open after all the attempts. Ciro takes out his gun and shoots at the front window, but the bullet ricochets and sticks into one of his thighs. Ciro screams in extreme pain, bleeding profusely. Ciro takes off his shirt and wraps it around the wound. Up to that moment, Ciro was avoiding being seen, but after having shot himself in the thigh, he tries to get the attention of someone outside so they can help him get out of the car, even if that means going to jail. Luckily, a woman appears outside the car and begins to fix her makeup using the car window. Ciro tries to ask her for help, but it seems that the woman outside the car cannot see Ciro inside. He yells at her, but the woman walks away unfazed. Ciro tries to call his wife, but before the call can be made, the phone battery runs out. Several hours pass and Ciro falls asleep. The next day, Ciro wakes up very thirsty. He has run out of water and is forced to lick the window out of desperation. Later, he takes the car's stereo system out of his bag and sets it up to listen to the radio. The radio plays his favorite song, and he gets lost in the music, forgetting his problems, even if for a brief moment. Although the song is a bit suggestive, it talks about doing the deed in the car. It casually describes Ciro's situation. It talks about fogged up windows, reclined seats, and doing it all night long. For some reason, the song gives him the motivation to try to open the door again. While he repeatedly strikes the door with a tool, a phone begins to ring. It is the car's stereo system. Ciro answers the call, and a man speaks on the other side. The man introduces himself as Dr. Enrique Ferrari and welcomes Ciro to the car. Enrique continues saying that he is the owner of the SUV and that he has been robbed 28 times in his life. He adds that Ciro is the 29th thief who has tried to rob him. The revelation infuriates Ciro, and he demands to be released, but Enrique tells him to shut up and listen. Enrique continues saying that he calls his car 4x4, that it has an alarm connected to his phone, with which Enrique can lock all the car doors. It is bulletproof, it cannot be moved from the inside due to the active suspension. It is also soundproof. Furthermore, the windows, including the front windshield, are all tinted. The only thing that is not bulletproof is the gas tank, which can hold 120 liters of fuel, and at this moment it is full. Enrique warns him that the full gas tank is a potential bomb, and in case he tries anything funny, the car could explode along with him. While Ciro listens in disbelief, Enrique continues saying that he is a 60-year-old widower. He had a normal childhood for a middle-class child of the time. The doors of his houses were never locked. Enrique says that current life is so bad right now that he misses the life he had when he was a child. He asks Ciro what he would do if he caught his son stealing. However, Ciro is fed up and threatens to report Enrique to the police. Ciro orders Enrique to release him so he can kill him and his entire family. However, before Ciro can finish, the phone hangs up. Afterward, Enrique turns on the air conditioning and sets it to the lowest temperature to torture the thief. Ciro tries to shut off the air conditioner but fails. With no choice, he takes off his shirt and puts it on his wound. To stop his thigh bleeding, he tears his jeans and wraps cloth around it. After torturing the thief for a good while, our Enrique calls him back and asks him again what he will do if he catches his son stealing. He tells him that he will give him water if he answers the question correctly. Ciro answers this question, but it does not satisfy Enrique. Ciro begs him to stop, telling him that he has learned his lesson, but Enrique does not care and once again tells Ciro about an incident. He reveals that last December 2 men entered his daughter's house when she was parking her car. Enrique reveals that he has trained his daughter for situations like this. She always avoids making eye contact and always has money ready to hand out. The training was not enough, and the thieves pointed a gun at Enrique's grandchildren for 3 hours. However, Ciro is not interested in Enrique's stories and asks him what kind of doctor denies water to an injured person. Enrique congratulates him on the question and asks him to guess the type of doctor he is before hanging up. While Ciro brainstorms, a police car arrives and stops in front of his SUV. Ciro fills with hope again and tries to get the officer's attention, but the officer gives the SUV a ticket and drives away. Several hours later, Enrique calls back and asks Ciro for his full name and his identification number in exchange for water. After Ciro agrees, Enrique guides him to the water from the rear windshield washer hose. The water is light blue in color, but to the dehydrated Ciro, it does not matter and he gulps down the water, letting out a sigh of relief. However, Ciro is still hungry and without food, so he is almost forced to eat an insect that somehow has snuck into the car. Later, Ciro checks his wound and notices that it is turning yellow and he also has a fever. Enrique decides to give him a break and turns on the air conditioning to cool him down and reveals that he is also sick. Enrique is dying of cancer and the doctors have told him that he has 1 year of life left. While Enrique keeps babbling, Ciro takes off his clothes and faints. Ciro's body has also turned yellow. Later, Ciro checks the car manual for a way to escape, but he only eats a page out of pure desperation and frustration. Ciro is truly at his lowest point and urinates into a container and drinks his own urine to quench his thirst. Suddenly, things look good for Ciro when a thief tries to break into the SUV, which gives him hope. However, the thief is discovered by passersby, they beat him up and hand him over to the police. Soon night falls and the dehydration and hunger turn him into a philosopher. He observes how a small percentage of people have so many things that it is necessary to distribute them so that everyone can enjoy them. Furthermore, he adds that the world is full of poor people with laws made by rich people for rich people. Ciro states that he will not obey them, even if they shoot him dead. He reveals that is why he became a thief, like his father and his grandfather. The next day, Enrique calls him again and reads the newspaper to him. Enrique tells him that he is in a good mood and guides him to a chocolate bar hidden behind the brakes. After spending all day resting and watching the people in the neighborhood, Ciro again repeatedly strikes one of the doors that he has managed to disassemble down to its metal part from the inside. He finally manages to create a small hole in the door that opens to the outside. He yells through the small hole to attract someone's attention, but has no success. Later, Enrique calls and reveals that he has contacted Ciro's family. Upon hearing his family's name, Ciro bursts into tears and warns Enrique not to hurt them. Next, he asks him through tears what he has done to deserve this. However, Enrique does not stop and pulls out Ciro's criminal record and reveals that Ciro has killed a person before. Tearful Ciro denies having killed anyone. Enrique has receipts and reveals that Ciro entered the house of the Salerno brothers in Barracas to rob them, but they tried to defend themselves and Ciro shot them with his gun. Enrique also brings up an old bus driver whom Ciro gave a severe beating. However, Ciro continues to refuse to take responsibility and blames the driver for not letting him rob the passengers. He says that he made mistakes and that he has already paid for them. Later, Ciro charges his phone with solar energy and calls his wife, but the call goes directly to voicemail. In the voicemail, he confesses everything to his wife and apologizes for messing up again. After crying his eyes out, Ciro plays with the car's start button and manages to turn it on. Apparently, it can only be started without a key after pressing it a certain number of times. He puts on his seatbelt and puts it in reverse gear. However, the gear gets stuck in reverse mode and he is forced to drive in reverse. He accelerates the car and crashes it into a pole to call people's attention. Fortunately, the airbag deploys in time and he does not suffer any injury. The injured Ciro finally manages to knock down the weakened rear window and escape. He is in a lot of pain, but he manages to crawl to a nearby gas station where he serves himself some food while savoring every bite. The restaurant manager orders him to pay for the food and leave immediately. This infuriates Ciro and he shoots the manager. Ciro then wakes up from his sleep and realizes that he was dreaming and that he is still trapped in the car. Enrique calls back and Ciro threatens to kill himself. He puts the gun in his mouth and pulls the trigger, but the gun jams. Enrique laughs at the thief's misery and asks him to look in front of the car, finally revealing himself. Enrique gets into the car with him. Ciro is very fatigued and has no strength to escape. Enrique tends to Ciro's wound and later gets distracted on a work call, while Ciro seems to fall asleep. Just at that moment, Ciro tries unsuccessfully to shoot the deranged doctor and jumps out of the car. He finally gets out and fires a shot into the air to ask for help. However, Enrique approaches him again and tries to drag him to the SUV. A female police officer discovers the two and orders the doctor to drop the weapon. 2 hours pass. Meanwhile, people, the media, and the police have surrounded the area, but Enrique refuses to release Ciro, saying that he is the victim of the thief. When everything fails, the police call the retired negotiator Julio Amadeo, who asks the doctor what he wants. Next, Enrique lists a series of problems that he faces every day and about which the government does nothing, because at least there are no injuries. Enrique says that while he is heading to his office, he has to avoid 2,000 dog poops on the street, because dog owners do not clean up what their pets leave behind when no one is watching. The public sympathizes with Enrique and cheers for him. Julio refuses to give up and continues talking to Enrique and finally convinces him to let Ciro go. Police arrest Ciro, and Julio asks Enrique to surrender, but he gets into his car after placing a timer on top. Julio realizes it may be a bomb and orders everyone back. The SUV explodes, killing Enrique, not before lighting a fire in the hearts of all the common people. And that is how this great movie ends. Subscribe to see more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel. Thanks for watching.